And it's my wig I'll introduce. So yeah.
Yeah. And we should be good to go.
Sweet.
Hey everybody, welcome to the 40th episode of Comic Beat Insider, the weekly pandemic Zoom podcast that we started last year. Oh my God, last year, late March 2020, early April, talking about films, TV, comics, whatever we want. This week we're going to talk the classic Kung Fu Shaw Brothers film directed by Chang Cheh called Five Deadly Venoms. I am Jimmy Aquino of Comic Dudes Insider, your weekly podcast for everything comic book, animation, sci-fi, and pop culture.
I'm Heidi MacDonald. I'm the editor-in-chief of The Beat at comicsbeat.com.
And returning champion is Randall Trang.
Hey,
Randall.
it's good to see everyone again.
Randall's back. Randall, tell us a little bit about yourself for the new listeners.
Yeah, so last week I was here. We talked about Kung Fu Hustle. I'm here to offer some of my insight. I'm a comic artist, writer, and actor, stunt performer, martial artist, educator, martial arts instructor. A lot of hats that I wear.
So he'll be, while I do a deep dive in all these things, he'll be a true historian. Let's just say, like someone who's actually done maybe many of these moves. So back in my day, I could do a couple of those, but nothing.
We'll talk about that actually.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, okay, right. So Five Deadly Venoms goes by many names on the on Netflix. It's actually on Netflix right now, just called The Five Venoms. I knew it as The Five Deadly Venoms or just Five Deadly Venoms. I think it also was called Shaolin Deadly Poisons at some point. There's many different like alternate English titles. From the classic Shaw Brothers studio in Hong Kong, which they were around from 1925 to 2000 and with different iterations, 2011. Like they were one of the giant Hollywood, like basically their version of Hollywood studio, one of the biggest studios, if not the biggest, in Chinese cinema for many years. And the guy that directed it, Chang Cheh, is a very famous writer and director. He wrote and directed almost 100 films, maybe a little more, and most of them were with Shaw Brothers.
It's actually it's the other hat that I wear, I guess, for the purposes of this conversation is that I speak Cantonese. So
yes, there you go.
The native language of this movie and last week's movie as well.
Yeah.
But for just a note on the title in Chinese, it's Ndo, which is five venoms or five poisons. Venoms and poisons is same word. So
got it.
Five poisons, yeah.
So Netflix was actually right. Five Venoms. All right, great. I just, because growing up, we always do the Five Deadly Venoms. You know, it sounds more menacing. Yeah, it sounds cool, more menacing. I mean, Venoms is pretty menacing, but yeah.
I think this movie was part of the wave of the first Kung Fu craze in the United States also. And, the word deadly was for some reason always assigned to Kung Fu. It's just one of those, there was the Marvel book, Deadly Hands of Kung Fu and so on. So it's just, just a word, a signal.
It definitely was. So like, I know growing up even in Florida, and I know all over the nation, Saturday morning or afternoon, there was different names for it. Either Kung Fu Theater or Black Belt Theater was on one of your local stations, and we watched it every week. And this is where I first saw this, because we like to talk about when we first saw this, was when I was a kid. Because they would just show, we had no idea what these films were. We just knew they were Kung Fu, and we liked it. Especially, we were a bunch of Filipino kids. We were like, yeah, we want to learn some karate and all this other stuff. Like my friends actually took it. My friend's brother-in-law taught Taekwondo. And I was just remember like being mesmerized. We loved this film so much because it was just like the masks and like they had basically, it's like almost like having superpowers they had, so we were like really attracted to that. When do you think the first time you guys saw it?
Well, the first time I saw it was last night. And
excellent.
So this is, we often, Jimmy and I swap off, we try to stump each other with a movie that we haven't seen. So this was one I didn't know anything about it, honestly. I'm actually old, but I was a little too young for the first wave of Kung Fu, although I did watch Kung Fu with David Carradine. And, and Master of Kung Fu was probably one of my top 5 comics of all time, probably my favorite Marvel comic of all time. So I was reading it, but later on. And so I had never heard of this. I was not aware. I am certainly a newcomer to this, but I loved it.
Fall down a Shaw Brothers well, because I started watching other films after this. I was like, oh, now I got to watch The Crippled Avengers, or known as the Return of the Five. But now I got to watch, the Iron Fist one. I got to watch that. So I started watching all this week.
Well, I did not realize we should probably, after we talk about this movie, we should probably talk about how Netflix has a pretty
they've got a great
of martial arts movies. So maybe we could pick some more. But I falling down a well. But wasn't
Randall,
what
how
I
about you?
expected. Yeah.
I don't remember how young I was when I watched this. I was just telling Heidi before we went live. So many of these movies, I have no memory of watching it for the first time just because I was so incredibly young. My dad.
We get it. You're younger than us, Randall.
It's okay.
We're old. It's fine.
We accept that.
Yeah, I have a father that is just like crazy about martial arts movies.
Nice.
And, us being a Chinese-speaking household, we watched exclusively Chinese movies up until I was, of a certain age where I could make my own decisions as to what movies to watch. So we watched exclusively Chinese movies. Most of the movies that I watched as a kid were from Hong Kong, all in Cantonese. They were on VHS, rented from the local Chinatown, kind of like bootleg.
Where
they would get imports and copies of imports, and that's where
I copies of those. I got those.
VCD also, which is a format that no one ever saw anything in. But we watched a lot of movies in that format. I remember the VHS case for this movie. I'm pretty sure it was an American case, because it did say 5 deadly venoms. But then the title screen pops up and it says which just means and I remember watching it when I was younger, and then I remember being reintroduced to it again when I was old enough to actually know what was going on with it, by my Taekwondo instructor. He was crazy about this movie. We watched it together.
It really it became a thing. We were kids in school and we were like, no, I want to be Centipede. No, I want to be Toad. Or like that, because it was like a superhero thing. And it was like we said, we watched this black belt theater, and certain ones stuck with you. Like that one, Flying Guillotine, stuck with us, which is another great one. And a few others that obviously the Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan stuff, because they were, we knew who they were, they're famous. But it was like, man, these were really stuck with us, and we knew. And doing research into the film, it's really interesting how it came together. Randall, you guys may have seen this too, but basically the Shaw Brothers, I said, they had their studio, they had so many things going on, and Chang Che was their main director, and he mostly directed kung fu stuff. He did some sword stuff as well before this, but in these early 70s he was doing mostly just kung fu, and sometimes 4 or 5 films a year. He was directing. This dude was very prolific. And he even had this choreographer he worked with, and please forgive the pronunciation, please. Lau Kar-Lung. He worked with a lot in these films, but they had a falling out with Lau on the set of Disciples of Shaolin. So he started working with this troupe of actors made up of Sun Jian, Chang Sheng, Kuo Chu, who's also known as Philip Kwok, Lomang Lufeng, Wei Pai, I'm saying all these times, so sorry, and who would become known as the Venoms. And so he had them, he had seen them, and a lot of them went to that famous Peking opera school we talked about, or offshoots of it. There was a one called, I think, Feng Shu, was it called? There's an offshoot of the Peking opera, and some of them were childhood friends, and they were just super acrobatic and very knew their kung fu, and some had a big background in comedy, as we see in Chang Sheng's character a lot. So he just decided to write this film. They weren't stars, and he's like, "Oh, well, I'm going to put these guys in this film and let them sort of the deal with the choreography like that." And holy crap, did it become this giant hit, and they became big stars and were working all the time. It was pretty great.
Yeah, I think that there's something special about this period of martial arts films, and I don't think we can mention this era without mentioning the fact that the reason it became this big boom was because of the movie, and the incredible amount of charisma that guy exuded on screen made everybody just go gaga over kung fu movies.
Yeah.
And this is obviously from a different school than the Bruce Lee films, but they're these guys being trained in Peking opera, which is how a lot of these early stuntmen were. That's how Jackie Chan was trained, Sammo Hung, and all those guys. Different school, but same practice of
same discipline.
Opera,
yeah.
where you have to be it's basically circus. like the amount of acrobatics you have to do. It's circus mixed with martial arts.
Insane. My God.
Yeah, because they are. You watch this movie, which has one of the best openings I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Such a great opening. But we see these 5. Like basically, the teacher has had 5 students, and
teacher's dying, and he has one student left.
Yes.
Chang is left, this student, and he's explaining to the student. Yeah,
that he has had these 5 students, but there's a mystery about them. They're all trained in a different style based on an animal. So the first 2 were, let's see if I can remember this properly.
Let's do it. Yeah, I got it all written down. Go ahead. Yeah.
It was snake and see now.
Oh, you got it. You almost said it.
Snake and lizard.
No,
not lizard.
Number 2 is snake.
Yes.
And number 1 is. It was also a great video game.
Centipede, of
course.
Centipede. Yes, that was the one I can remember. Which isn't an amphibian or a reptile. That's why I got confused.
He's the oldest.
So they knew each other, and then they left, and he had another student who was the scorpion, which of course I remember because I'm a Scorpio. And then he left, and he did not know the last 2, who were frog and lizard, which the subtitles had
toad.
gecko.
Yeah,
toad
and gecko. Yeah.
And they don't know each other, but he fears that they are going after this fortune, this treasure. And so he sends his last student to investigate and to find the bad students.
Yeah. And then the last student,
yes,
he hasn't really he's trained the last student in all the styles, but not completely. So he's got a little bit of like each of their styles in him. But he could never defeat one-on-one. He'd have to find one that he could team up with to defeat another one.
Yeah. I love that setup. Like,
it's great. It's like a complete explains the entire thing. You're like, great, I'm in.
Yeah.
I love that's what my first note about this this movie. I wrote down notes as I was watching.
Same. Yeah. My second viewing I did. Yeah.
the pacing, I like this movie even more than I remembered. Like I have really fond memories of this movie, and watching it again, I was just kind of marveling at the filmmaking quality of it, the storytelling quality of it. And it sets itself apart from a lot of other films in this era, just because I feel like it's so character driven, and they pace it so incredibly well. Like the movie starts off with an introduction, and then like a half an hour, and everybody, what their deal is, what they want, exactly what the conflict is, and then you just are in for the ride. And it's like it wraps up in I think like 90 minutes.
It's like tight. And that wrap up is like
and
like
I
a
guess,
10-minute battle at the end. Yeah.
I guess what I found surprising about this is a lot of action movies are pretty simple plots. I mean, even Kung Fu Hustle, which we all loved, it's a pretty simple story, but this one is kind of it's a detective story. It's quite cerebral. It's like
CSI going on.
It's absolutely CSI, medieval Chinese CSI, because there was so much talk about evidence and investigating because a murder is a dastardly murder. Now we know who committed the murder, and we catch on to who is Centipede and who is a snake.
Did you figure out though, who? Because the only one that they sort of introduced themselves, you figured out, but then the very last one we don't really get revealed to the end. Scorpion. Did you figure out who it was early on?
I did,
because I didn't remember, and I had it down between obviously Officer Ma, and maybe even the judge. And I was like, I can't remember. It seems like Ma, he's in better shape, but I can't remember for sure if that's him or not. But I was like, I just hadn't seen any of these films in years. I forgot that, of course, that actor was in all of them. But
yeah. Well, I will say Ma has a pretty distinctive voice, and I quickly noticed that Scorpion also had a very distinctive voice.
So interesting.
He's also ripped.
Yeah. He's super. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Before we continue, how did you watch it with the original Cantonese with the subtitles, or did you watch it dubbed?
I watched it. Okay, Heidi, go ahead.
I watched it with the subtitles because that way I pay attention more.
Yeah. So I did it both ways, and I found something very interesting. I watched it Cantonese with subtitles. Even that seemed like the entire film was dubbed. You know what I mean? Like it seemed the way, that's what it sounds like they just did complete ADR for the entire film. Like the mouths matched up, of course, but and then I watched it with the English dubs because that's what I remembered, but I turned the English subtitles on, and that was really interesting because hardly any of it matched. It had the same idea, like from what they were saying, they'd be like, "Hey, you over there," and then it would read, "Stop that guy," or something like that. You're like, "Well, it's the same idea."
Yeah.
But it's not exactly the same. So I was watching almost two different stories, which was interesting.
I was really interested too, because I started watching the movie like on its default setting, which is dubbed. It's the English dub with like, you know, the thing that everybody makes fun of now, the bad dubbing and the bad voice acting overwords.
What do you mean, Randall?
Yeah, exactly. Sounds exactly like that. They have like the 3 voice actors at Shaw. That do all of the dubbing. But yeah, it's like you get a completely different movie. I feel like I was watching it and I was just like, this, like I for a second I was like, is this worse than I remember? Because I was not having a good time watching it. And then I was just like, I'm gonna switch it, because like I was just like, I was sitting further from the TV, so I was just too lazy to switch it. And then eventually, after like a few scenes, I switched it over and I was like, okay, this is good. This is like way better. The performances come through, the characters come through, I think a lot more in the subtitled version. Just because like I'm not the type of person that like takes a really hard stance over like subs versus dubs. Like I don't And a lot of that has to do with like, you know, your ability to watch movies and your ability to read while you're watching a movie. Like I don't want to be an ableist and say that like one way is better than the other. I'm just saying that it is very different, a different movie. And the way that it was originally intended versus the way that it was dubbed over creates 2 really different viewing experiences.
I totally agree.
Absolutely. I started with the English dubs, and which I enjoy in a campy way, right? But I realized that was not how to watch this film. That really the best way to do it was to listen to the Cantonese version, and read. And that way, like, watching TV is a little bit hard for. I
always prefer hearing the actors like intonation.
It was much better, much better. So
even though it is still ADR'd, like you said, Jimmy, because I think a lot of those movies back then were shot with film without actual proper recording, like on set during.
Also, those intense fights. My God,
So they would have to just sit in the studio afterwards and have the actors dub over themselves. And I think that's how a lot of those movies worked also, because you get a mixture of Mandarin and Cantonese speakers on set. So some people acted in Mandarin, some other people spoke.
It's
like that Sergio Leone thing,
Yeah.
where you see those old like spaghetti westerns where you have Italian speakers act in Italian and then they dub it English later. It's
right on. I just for nostalgia I had to watch with the dubs, because again everyone made fun of that. Like I said, we did a whole improv thing where we did this whole kung fu theater we do every week on our improv show, and just do that whole thing and moving our mouths and not saying the same thing at the same time, which was super fun. And again, right, your South is the best.
Now I gotta say, I totally understand why you guys took this movie like that, and why it was so inspiring to playground activities, because it's just got so many great elements to it that are irresistible.
I do want to talk about the actors, because they have such an interesting story. So like I said, they most of them went to Peking Opera. Some of them were childhood friends and knew each other, but they were sort of more background. And Chang Che, the director, just plucked them. And he was like, these guys are great. He started noticing them. He pulled them. I think it was Runmi Shaw, one of the brothers, sort of like noticed him as well. And they brought him in. So there's 6 of them now out of the Venoms. I know there's 5 Venoms, but of course Chang counts as one. He's considered the hybrid Venom. So Chang Che, he was a last student, of course. He was known for his acrobatics in comedy. So you see some of the other Shaw Brothers films, he's very funny in them. He always plays that sort of comical character. He even directed several of Che's films.
And even though he's kind of the ingenue in this, he's actually older. He's one of the older ones of this Venom mob, as they were saying. So which kind of cracked me up.
They're all East Asian though, so you can never tell how.
It's true. We Asians, we age very well. We don't, as they say, Asian don't raisin. So but they only did did a hand, like maybe 12 films or so together. Not all of them, but then maybe two did together, 3 did together here and there, and they ended up doing quite a bit. But they sort of, as this Venom gang, sort of disbanded only a few years later, like in '81.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were going to compare it, it would be sort of like, the Bowery Boys.
The Rat Pack, they're the Chinese Rat Pack.
Yeah. The Rat Pack, or, like the Little Rascals. I'm trying to think of a team.
Little Rascals.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to think of like.
I mean,
I am that old, but I'm just trying to think. I mean, like obviously it was a gang of actors who
I saw it as like Rat Pack.
Just caught on, and people wanted to see them act together and fight together because obviously they had gone to school together, and so they had
amazing chemistry. All the fights.
Yeah. They knew each other well. The chemistry is incredible.
It's just great. It's fantastic.
So like, I'm gonna stop butchering their names. I'm gonna call them by their character, like their what they were. So
sure.
Well, we'll check. So Lizard. Well, Philip Kwok, he had an English name too. Philip Kwok was Lizard. So Lizard, Chang, and then Centipede. They were from Taiwan. So they went back to Taiwan to start a production company, and they did some stuff okay. Chang acted and choreographed in some of these films and as well. But then the other two decided we need to go back to Hong Kong and work because there's not much work in Taiwan apparently. But Chang's wife insisted, the story goes, he stayed. He wanted to stay for her. But he couldn't really get much work because, again, I guess in Taiwan there wasn't as much work. And he sort of fell on hard times, started drinking. They got divorced. He really didn't work much more. He did some little films here and there, some smaller Taiwanese films, and he's in this really weird Korean TV series. Was his last thing, I think, in '91, the year he died. He died very young. He died at 40. He this really weird film, and I saw bits of it where he's like bald. He's got these Yoda-like ears. So I'm not sure if he's playing an alien or he's some sort of just really strange character, and it just looks almost like really sad. That was sort of his last thing he did, because a friend the story goes, a friend went to visit him and he'd been dead for 3 days and he died of like a heart attack, and his friend's like, he died of a broken heart because he left his wife, got divorced, and had been drinking. So he died really young, and it was really sad. I'm like, oh my God, that dude was so talented. It was so good. Then we have Scorpion Ma. He was, of course, known for his kicks,
It is.
Yeah, he was the best kicker of the group, that dude. Yeah, he was like incredible. He worked pretty much till '91, but I couldn't really find much on him after that. Philip Kwok, or Lizard, he worked pretty consistently till 2014.
Yeah.
Lo Mang Toad, he probably the most consistent one.
Yeah,
successfully working. He's still working. He's still working. And
he's in all the Yip Man movies.
Yep.
He's a big deal.
Yeah, I was watching he's done some conventions. He's done as like the Shaolin Hercules, and
but he was the muscle man.
Yeah, he was jacked.
And Toad has this. He's invulnerable.
Yeah.
And as we spoil the story a bit more, for viewers or listeners, Toad seems to get tortured quite a bit.
Yeah.
And but then they said. Right. But they said that they tortured him because he was so, physical and muscular that it was more pathos, or, it was more effective.
You just want to see more scenes of him shirtless.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
covered with blood. Just, know.
I mean, those blood looked so like, that blood was so paint-like. It was so funny. It was so non-realistic.
It's bright.
Bright red. Looks like bright red paste. But he like does conventions. I saw some videos on him. He's still around. Like, he worked on some Western films. He worked on Brotherhood of the Wolf, I think, was it? Yeah, that French film. Yeah, I think he worked on that. Yeah, I think he helped do some choreography on that. But yeah, he's still working today. He's like, it's funny, like in most of the Shaw Brothers films, because he's the big one, he was for some reason almost always the first one killed. It was like this thing, like they all kind of fell into their little roles, and then just each film sort of had that. And then the last two, Snake, he wasn't in as many films as the other ones because he didn't really have he wasn't as skilled, I think, kung fu wise as the other word.
Yeah, when he was introduced, I was sort of like, here's just this handsome guy in a in a silver lounge suit, like
very fancy as fuck.
Yeah, he was just kind of this fancy,
very pretty.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, a pretty boy just lounging, and he had the snake.
Yeah.
Snake.
I mean, he's good. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, he's good. He's better than me.
Nothing like those guys. Yeah, he's nothing as skilled as those guys.
But yeah, he had that.
Yeah. He worked till he preferred drama more than action, so he worked till about '88. Then I couldn't find much after that. And finally, the last one, Lu Fong, He worked till about 92, and I couldn't find much after him. But I guess like Lo Mang was probably the one that worked the most. And again, like we said, still working.
And Philip Kwok was pretty kind of the star.
Oh yeah, most of the films he was he
main. Exudes the star quality. In this
he
movie.
really does.
Like you see him and you're just like, okay, that guy. Because like you start off the movie with the youngest young, kind of like thinking that he's going to be the protagonist, and then like when the moment Philip Kwok shows up, he takes over the movie, both like in terms of screen time and also like actually charismatically.
Like charisma,
he's great.
So I think it's great. So backstory wise, I just wanted to give a little background on those guys. So I think
well, it's fantastic. Like, you know, more contemporary. You said the Rat Pack. It's also like, you know, the Will Ferrell comedy group or something. You know, it's just like a group of actors that everybody wanted to see together. So they went on to make all these movies in you know, various combinations. You know, if you do watch this, there's a lot. It's just you're opening a treasure trove.
Oh, I did want to ask Randall, because I know it's based on like the 5 Chinese venomous creatures, you know, which is well-known, which we all just name. But there's also, I remember as a kid reading, I ended up adapting it to do a sort of a children's stage musical thing when I used to run a children's theater back when I was in my 20s.
That's cool.
There's a famous Chinese brothers lore, and it starts out, I think, just 10 brothers, but then there's been different iterations, 7 brothers, 5 brothers. Do you know what I'm talking about? They each kind of have a power. So there's this famous story in China, like the 10 brothers, but then the one I read as a kid, I have 2 versions I still own. And I think they're Americanized versions, but one's 5 Chinese brothers, one's 7 Chinese brothers. And the idea was that they each had a power. And in the 5 and 7 Chinese brothers stories was something almost like this movie, where one of them is mistaken for doing something wrong, gets jailed and is sentenced to death the next day, like you're going to be hung. So the brother that has the strong invincible neck trades, because they all look alike, trades places with him in the middle of the night. So they try to hang him and he survives. They go, well, we can't do that. We're going to drown you. So the brother that can hold his breath forever trades places with him. They can't just, it goes on and on like that. So I'm wondering if that was maybe even an inspiration.
I just think that I don't know if it is tied, but I think very much that this is a part of Chinese culture, like this idea of brotherhood. And this is a theme that runs throughout the whole movie. Is this
all their
this
movies,
idea, of all the Venom movies, but like most martial arts movies, including Shaolin Soccer, which we mentioned last week. Shaolin Soccer borrows a lot from this movie. That idea of like brotherhood, and in East Asian cultures, and in definitely East Asian martial arts, especially Kung Fu, and especially this style of Kung Fu. When you are training with other people, you are literally supposed to be considered family. The people that you train with are referred to as your brothers and sisters, your siblings. And that's the language that is carried throughout this entire movie, that I don't know if it translates, but whenever they refer to each other, they refer to each other as, first oldest brother, or second oldest brother, third oldest brother. They all address each other by their title. They never use names with each other. They only use their titles. Once they realize that they're all part of the same school, that's kind of how it goes. And that's a theme in a lot of martial arts movies in particular, is like, if you all come from the same school, there's this kinship that exists there. And when there's conflict within the school, it leads to like also a family drama. So that's what I think of this movie as. It's like it's a martial arts movie, but it's also like this inner family drama about the poison, or the five Venoms, the Poison Clan. And you know, what does it mean to be a part of this house? And like a lot of this movie has to deal with, like, you know, the reputation of this house has been ruined, and they're trying to reclaim, you know,
restore honor to it.
The honor to this house. And we'll talk more about it, because the conclusion, I love it. But,
I mean, I think
all
that
the conclusion has to deal with.
That has a lot to do with why the dying master sends his last student out, because it is the honor of his school, and you know,
it's him.
like
that's his legacy. And it's like, you know, if these guys are off doing evil things, they're doing it in my name. And if this is my legacy, that sucks. You know, my lasting legacy is these people destroying, you know, society.
I think it's interesting about because in many Asian cultures, the idea of like respect is really big. Obviously, I wish we had it more over here. But even in Filipino culture, you called your older brother sister manang. I know in like Korean, it's like opa for brother and uni for like older sister or things like that. Or you call them that out of respect. But also, like he said, if you're on a team together, like going back to K-pop, of course, in K-pop, like all the girls in the group call the oldest one uni because she's the oldest one. It's a sign of respect.
It extends out to society.
Yeah.
Like if you work the same job, you build that relationship.
Yeah.
Even within comics, Ming Doyle, who's
that's our friend. We love Ming.
Right. We love Ming. I call Ming Jie. Like she's my older sister. She is she's been like I've known her for a long time, and
she's the best. I love
helped me out a whole lot. And I love her to death. I love her like a sister. And whenever I see her, that's what I call her.
She's nice. We love her. We love her art. We love her.
I miss her. I know. Well, because we were like at Theater Convention all the time. I even did a couple of those. Like I used to do these what Becky Cloonan, I had her on a couple of them. She called them dinterviews, where I would it was that old Jon Favreau show, Table for Five, where you had Table for Five, where you'd sit around talking. I would do that after a convention. I'd bring like 4 or 5 of my cartoonist friends. We would sit and have dinner, and I just hold the digital mic or recorder around, and you could hear us ordering our food, eating, clinking.
That's awesome.
People thought it was so charming. Like I felt like I was having dinner with you guys, and Ming did a couple of those. It was great.
So
I know dinner. Remember those times, guys? We'll get back there. We'll get back. But speaking of eating, boy, when Chang Chang gets to the town and he's kind of playing like a homeless guy, I guess, to sort of blend in. Could he stuff more food in his mouth in that first scene?
It's very
my
funny.
God, he's just like, because he's playing the comedy, and he's like shoving bread in his mouth and still chewing, grabs an apple, starts chewing. I'm like, my God, dude, did the master not feed you? Calm down, what's going on?
Probably not. I was reading that something that Michelle Yeoh said about Jackie Chan, which is that she loved him, but he ate too fast. Probably because when he was growing up, you had to eat fast at the school.
Yeah.
Well, I can attest for that personally because I still have a really bad habit of eating fast, and a lot of that came from, let's say we're having dinner and I had an older brother, and we would eat, especially if there's leftovers. You wanted something so if you didn't eat fast enough, you wouldn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
So I would start eating so I could try to get that other chicken leg, whatever like that.
Yeah.
If not, he would take it. And I'd be like, I get so mad. So I think that's part of why. Maybe that's why, especially in the schools, maybe you had to fucking fight to eat.
I actually think that was a character.
Not physically fight, but
I think that was the character bit. I think that was a given,
absolutely. Yeah, yes, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought it was really funny.
It's also because like so often these guys train all day and all night, and that's oftentimes why they build that familial bond, is because oftentimes these types of kung fu schools, and this applied to the actors that played these roles too. When you go off to a martial arts school, oftentimes you are sold to the master, and they are your, they're basically your surrogate father. They house you, they feed you, and in return you perform for them for the Peking Opera, and they train you. Right, and in return for giving you this life, you provide that service for them, and you become brothers and sisters because you all live under the same roof, right? And you aren't fed that much because performers aren't paid that much, so they're so physically active that their metabolism is just going, and they need to eat a lot. So and the master can't afford to feed everybody proper meals, so it's like you get a little bit of food, you work out a lot, you're growing. You're just gonna eat a ton, like during the feeding time. You guys have to get your food in.
That'll be my excuse now. Listen, I'm working out, and I'm a growing boy. I'm 100, but whatever.
I just like to eat fast because I like dessert. I like to get the dessert. I gotta get the butter beans off the plate. Give me my ice cream. So,
well, on a side note about the Peking Opera House, even like you probably know, you guys know this too. It's like Jackie Chan was actually adopted by his sifu, by his master, and which made him even have to work twice as hard because he was, of course, expected more out of him because he was officially adopted by the guy, the main master of the Peking Opera School there. So we're in the story. We see the student trying to blend in, and I guess he's trying to be a homeless guy because he got a little like every time he appeared he had more dirt on his face.
I loved it.
Like,
I just
there
loved
you go,
it.
Jay. He's like more like he is like totally like scrapping in the mud or something.
There's no script supervisor be like,
Yeah.
oh no, you only had like spots here.
Yeah.
They're just
It
like,
was
whatever, grab
great.
as much as you can and plow it
It
on
was
yourself.
great. It was great. And then, like you said, we meet right away. We meet Mr. Charisma. We meet Mr. He, who's a cop, who's an officer. Him and Mr. Ma, who's sort of his superior. And he, who I call Stubbs because he's got the stubble.
Right.
So Stubbs is there, and he seems kind of like almost like an arrogant jerk at first, the way he's walking around town, like grabbing stuff. Hey guys, look at me! I'm there.
It's a cop,
Yeah.
So cop lives matter.
And everyone's about yeah. Everyone's kowtowing to him, and he's like, yeah, all right. And then, but Ma's like reprimanded him, like, hey, we're cops, we're not supposed to be taking that free stuff, whatever, like that.
And
so
don't they say that Ma is awesome? Like everybody loves Ma.
No, they say he. They say he is.
Everybody loves him, right? Okay.
Yeah, everybody loves him.
Yeah, well, I couldn't tell again in the subtitles if this was ironic because he didn't seem like that great a guy, but
yeah, I think they were scared of him. Yeah, I think they were just like they didn't want to. They wanted to be on his good side because he's a cop in case something goes wrong.
I mean, you want to talk, like a relevant movie to 2020, 2021.
Yeah,
like, they're scared of the cops, and so like they're they have infinite power. They answer only to the governor.
Yep.
And they hold immense power, and a lot of them walk around with that kind of swagger because you can't tell them what to do.
And yet they have the most fancy uniforms.
Okay? Yeah.
Like the costume in this. Like they're wearing this fishnet kind of over vest, which I was coveting. And then the head judge has like this little tie that's like screen mesh or something. Yeah. I mean,
he sits on a throne.
Yeah.
Literally sits on a throne.
This guy is the combination, governor / police captain. And he like sits on a throne. Like that's the big class discrepancy that you're seeing. They're establishing this world. It's older China. So you see this this is how it's run. It reminds me of those like Wild West movies where the sheriff, because the sheriff's got all the guns, he's the one in charge, and everybody has to kowtow to him. Yeah. And that's what this is to me, is like, these types of old Kung Fu movies are Westerns. It's like might is right. Whoever has the most weapons and is the strongest is the one that's in charge.
Yeah. So in that little walk through town, we follow he and Ma. We meet a ton of them. We run right into he runs in, coming out of the bar comes Toad, who throws like a little coin at him. And what I think is great, every time he does something, Ma, they focus on him, the camera, where he notices it. It's like, which again, it makes sense later. All right, what's going on over
foreshadowing.
There? Yeah, a little foreshadowing of like him like studying, clearly studying to try to find out who the other brothers were. But yeah, so we see that, and then as he's walking through, they find out that the story starts folding. He goes to meet Toad in the bar. I guess they're just hanging out. But I think it's really first. This is what's another good setup too. Toad's in the bar hanging out. And you see the homeless student, hanging out and like just being, playing his character, and the barkeeper owner trying to kick him out. And Toad's like, let him in. Here, I'll buy him something to eat, have a little drink.
So he's okay.
So it's established, okay, he's a good guy. So right away he's a good guy, which is good. So Chang knows, like, he's like, okay, or the student. Is the student even named? I think he is, but what is it? Oh, Yang T, I guess Yang T, something like that.
Yeah, he has a name, but
he doesn't have an animal.
Yeah, that's right.
They don't refer to him as that as much.
Yeah, so Yang is like, goes to sit with him. He's like, I love that he lets him sit down, lets him grab like the chopsticks, or just he's like, I'm expecting somebody. If you don't mind sitting somewhere else. Oh, okay, no problem. He gets up. It's just so, I love the way they set up the scenes. They do that. So he shows up. You're like, all right, something's going on there. What's happening?
A lot of character moments. Yeah. Like, I feel like this movie, even though it's like, mainly to set up fight scenes, they do a lot of story stuff, and I think they do a lot of smart story stuff where there's not a whole lot that doesn't serve a purpose. Like, it's either revealing character or it's moving the plot forward. It's the only scenes that exist in this movie.
Yeah, this movie is super plot driven. I mean, the fighting is quite economical. I mean, it's spectacular when it happens, but it's not like, an excuse to have a fight every 5 minutes. It's we're really.
I was surprised it took about 35 minutes for the first fight to happen.
Yeah, because we're really drawn into this mystery because after we kind of set up, all right, here's, we understand that Lizard and Toad are they're 4 and 5. They know each other. And then we figure out that Centipede and Snake are, this kind of bearded, tough guy.
Well, we meet Snake and we don't know he's Snake. We know who Centipede is right away.
Yeah.
Snake doesn't reveal himself until they go to the bookkeeper's house.
Right. But he's shady. We can tell he's shady.
But he's rich. He's a rich guy.
He's the rich, shady guy. But so he's rich, but still they go, there's this judge and, who has murdered horribly. They break in.
He's a bookkeeper. He's a
bookkeeper. Yes, we see this terrible murder, and the only women in the whole movie. By the way, I mean, this is a whole essay in and of itself. But apparently, the Trang movies did not have any women in them.
There were a few part of the not many. There were a few Venoms later that they called like the side. They called them like not side Venoms. They called them like they sort of started acting. And there was a few women in those, but definitely very few.
There is. This is a girl-free film really, and which is ironic because Quentin Tarantino referenced it in Kill Bill with the 5 Venom. I mean, he had the 5.
Oh yes,
exactly,
yeah, that's
which
exactly
was women. So he did the little flip.
Yeah, he even thanks Chang Cheh and like the credits for that.
Snake is like originally this might be apocryphal, like after the fact, like they said this, but like apparently Snake was supposed to be a woman.
Oh really?
Yeah, they were supposed to have a Snake, but then they were just like, you know what, let's just use these guys. Like
that would have been awesome.
Yeah.
Because they did in what was, and again, because I was just dumb. I know about years ago. There's terribly named now the Crippled Avengers, but over here it was called The Return of the 5 Deadly Venoms, and I was like, oh, a sequel. So we're buying that, and I actually watching it recently. I was like, of course it's not a sequel. It's a totally different movie. And it stars all of them. But there's a woman in there in that movie. We'll get to that movie later. It's great. Pan Ping Chang, she has sort of a cameo in this in Crippled Avengers, but she goes on to co-star as like a swordsman in Kid with the Golden Arm. He even plays Philip Kwok's wife in Legend of the Fox. So there was a few, very far between, but there were a couple here and there. Would have liked to have seen a lot more. And that would have been great to have Snake be a woman.
Yeah, that would have made it. But it would have made it a very different. I mean, they should have had women in the movie. Just
for sure.
That out. But I do understand that this was about the teacher and his sick
brotherhood or whatever.
The brotherhood. It was there was kind of a thematic reason for it that we understand. So
I think it's also just like back then these guys might just not have known any women. I just think that they all just hired their friends and they didn't have any girls. This is such
only dudes living, like 5 of them living together, 6 of them living together in a basement, like just never going anywhere.
It's like, do you know any women? No. I guess it's just us.
We train 18 hours a day. Where do we meet people? Of course not.
I
mean, so much of Hollywood is like that anyway. It's like you just hire your friends. If you don't know any women, or if you don't know any people of color, they're not.
Yep. That's what it is, especially in the 70s. Yeah, for sure. So we meet 4 of them right away. And then, like you said, they go to the bookkeeper's house. The reason they go to the bookkeeper's house because they think he's the old friend of the master, or I think he even used to be a master at the same.
He trained with the master.
Yeah, trained with the master, and he had this massive treasure that the master wanted to give away to charity, but he held on to it, and then that's why he thought the evil Venoms might be taking the thing. So Snake and Centipede show up, kill his entire family, like with one punch. And like what I love about these films also is the death scenes. Is like where they like get up, they get knocked down, they get up for a second and fall. They're like, oh, and they just like pass out dead. And like literally, I watched it right in a row. There's like the 4 guys that jump them, that go at them. They all have the same almost death.
And we've seen the different styles, the Centipede style, which is whirling, it's super fast.
Oh
and
my
then
gosh.
Snake is like pressure points, and let's all
I
just
love
do
the
it.
sound
We
effects.
all just love it. Yeah, the sound effects. And actually, I mean, I am jumping ahead, but so I don't forget. It's like actually what I loved was when the CSI comes in, you know, and it's like they're looking at the bodies and we see these horrible bruises on them of handprints all over their torsos and, you know, kicking marks. And it's
and
wonderful.
Of course, Detective if he's a detective, he notices who we secretly the lizard notices these styles, and he's like, "Wait a minute, I know this. Something's up here." And he also notices because as we see near the end, after Snake and Scorpion.
No, after Snake and Centipede have
left.
Thank
you. Yes, Scorpion shows up in his mask, so we don't know who he is.
Mask, yes.
And he finds this little scroll that's like a map to the treasure. And then when they're expecting the seed, he notices this like candle broken, and he's trying to be like nonchalant about it. But then again, once again, the camera focused to the Ma, noticing him going. Like he notices, like Ma sees him, he zooms in on him.
That's what another thing I noticed about the camera work is that it moves around a lot when it's acting scenes. Fight scenes, it's dead still.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The opposite of what action.
Which is great because they let nowadays it's all like camera work is insane. You can't even see the fight.
That's the emphasis on movies. This movie and other movies, whereas other movies they will focus on trying to get the actors to look good during the acting scenes, and then during the fight scenes they'll have to cut it, right? Because it's easier to get an actor that can deliver lines well and then just get like a stunt actor to do the fight scenes than it is to get a stunt person to be a good actor.
Yeah, exactly.
You need a lot of camera help to turn that stunt actor into a good actor.
So that's the method behind the madness of the cutting. It's
exactly.
Well,
he's not going to show it in his face. The camera's going to show it.
Well, also Chang sort of like he really focused on the kung fu. He didn't really bother much, as I read, like about the acting. The acting will come or something like that. You know,
they're very broad. The acting is like acting's not bad actually. Like it's better than I remembered. Especially for like Phil Kwok and Lo Mang. Like I feel like they're really strong actors.
Yeah.
So like they're perfectly fine. Everyone else is just very broad.
Chang especially. Yeah, because he's playing the comic idiot role, which he played in several. Which he plays.
It's like you're shocked. It's always like the most reaction.
or the laughs are always like. Right, laugh. I love it.
Oh, you're playing to the back row.
So. I love it. Yeah. So that's great. So we get to that, and then something else I want to say about the what does change it about the dubs was there were significant things that could have meant something else, like they would call Centipede was called something of the Thousand Hands. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, because that's his fighting style. Like Centipede literally translates to like thousands of hands. So that's what
which sounds cooler. I think
Well, that was the one that I noticed too when they talked about the lizard. They said lizard, but then they said gecko, which gecko is a lizard, but a gecko very specifically sticks to the wall. And the lizard style was sticking to the wall. So I was wondering if that was, if it was a specific kind of lizard or just, lizard style.
Yeah, I mean, like we have different words for those two different. Like we don't consider them the same thing. Like a monitor lizard to us is not the same thing.
Yeah, well,
right.
Yeah. So his style was specifically the sticky lizard.
Yes. Sure.
Okay. So I
then also sounding much cooler is they called it Iron Maiden, because we know what an Iron Maiden is. English people do, but they called it the coat of 1,000 needles. I'm like, that's so awesome.
Yeah. It's very economic.
That could be like an Andrew Lloyd Webber music. Joseph and his coat of 1,000 needles.
But it's science. The Iron Maiden is science because so then we really go CSI on this movie. Now it becomes this. I kept waiting for Jessica Fletcher to show up. So she could kind of like sort this all out. But there is a witness who saw Centipede leaving the house, and so they come before the judge. Our Centipede is arrested, and
he's a stereotypical sort of one, like the one that's tiny. Yes. Sorry, that always has that same actor. Yeah,
he's so scared that he physically has to lift his legs to move them.
Right, and
that was great.
So, and
grabs his own leg.
and Inspector who is Lizard, is trying, he's in on the case, and he's, he knows Scorpion is out there. He knows that his other the other Venoms are out there. So he's trying to crack the case too. And Snake goes to jail. Or excuse me, Centipede goes to jail, but Snake is working hard with the judge because he is a snake, man.
Yeah.
He is just fake evidence and everything.
And rich people influencing the cops. What's up with that? Influencing government.
He's got a bracelet that has a snake on it.
I know, like that's what he's like, and they always zoomed in on it.
That's what keeps giving him away. It's just like, oh, you must be the snake. It's like, well, yeah, look.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like you have a giant snake tattoo.
Yeah, I think Jessica Fletcher would have figured it out super fast, but there's all this other stuff going on.
Yeah, Sherlock would have had that like in a second.
Yeah.
You have a snake, dude. What's up with that? Yeah.
But so Snake and the judge conspire to get framed by threatening the witness, and now.
Well, also because Toad and Lizard were friends.
Yes.
So Lizard knows that it's other two Venoms. So he's like, I might need your help to arrest them, even though he's not a cop, but because he's tough. And of course, Toad takes down. Well, also, but with a little help from the student who does the bumbling idiot thing. Oh, trips him over, so they're able to catch him, which he's so really good at.
Cool. That fight scene is so amazing when Toad confronts Centipede.
Yes.
Like
that's our first fight in the film.
That's the first real fight, and it does not disappoint.
Oh my god, just watching like those fast hands and like, and I love when
he's
like
spinning on the floor and like
you get to really see their athleticism, their flips, and again, it's like the camera moves a little bit just to follow the action, but it doesn't zoom in on hits or anything like that. And you just watch them go.
Like this is
like I said last week.
It's incredible.
It's incredibly hard to do. Like as someone that's a fight specialist for stunts, when the camera doesn't help you and you just have to make it look good by being good.
Yeah.
The scariest thing in the world, but also like you got to have the chops. Like you have to look good because there's no camera angles that are going to help you. It's just the camera's there. It's a wide shot, right? Everything is a wide or a medium, right? There's no close-ups of anything. So all of the wide shots, you can't hide any mistakes that you make. You have to make it look good on the on every hit.
And they use, there's obviously wire work in this movie. When Lizard.
Not much, but definitely a little.
Not very
not much at all.
The acrobatics of this group.
These guys
they are tumbling, they are jumping, they are flipping. It's
backflips, front flips,
whatever.
You
have to see this because you're right in the movie. But then Centipede is undone when he does this, or it's Toad jumps over and gets him and captures him, and he's arrested. So it's fantastic.
Well, it's a great mix of styles, like this speed and strength fight with Centipede.
Oh, that was such a great But I agree with you, Randall. Like even there's certainly some good fighters out there now, like some good fight choreography, but it is all about camera work mostly. But even as a former, as people know, recovering actor, recovering fighter, I used to choreograph fight, do stage combat, things like that. When I see something that's so obviously not sold or just faked, or they're just like sort of going through the motions, it just takes me out of the moment completely. And whether that's a movie or especially on stage, people use that excuse on stage. You can make stage fights look real good. So when I see lazy stage fights, I get furious. I'm like, it really drives me crazy, especially or even like with, going back to as much as I always pick on Iron Fist, the series, but like clearly that dude was not a fighter and he sucked. And like you absolutely could tell when the stuntman was on, which was the time.
That for me, that's Scarlett Johansson and all the Avengers. She is so, she's a great actor, no question, but she's so non-athletic. And it's like anytime like Black Widow does anything, it's like such an obvious cut. I'm just like, her stunt person was great.
And then she's there for the pose.
Yeah, she's there, but then So God bless. She was not hired to be.
But again, these guys, you see everything because they're all. It's insane.
Nothing is hidden with them.
Yeah.
Right? That's just sheer, athleticism.
So I do want to ask something, like, because all these films, and I guess it was just popular. All the films, almost all of them, these Shaw Brother ones, especially the ones in the 70s and 80s, were period pieces. Was there any is it just because of the popularity? Was there any reason they didn't really do any modern day ones back then, or did they and I just missed them?
think it was in fashion.
Okay, just sort of
here
thinking.
in the same way that, like, westerns were all the craze.
Okay, yeah.
But also I think it's a budgetary thing too. And also I do enjoy these movies more because, like, in order to justify using kung fu this much, you have to justify them not having a gun.
Right.
Yeah, there you go.
Like,
Fair enough. Yeah,
wouldn't that just put a stop to everything? You just shoot the guy.
that's true. Fair enough. You're right. Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
like if you take that out of the equation, even in this movie, they have these superpowers that make swords completely, like a non-factor.
Yeah.
There's a point where Centipede uses the sword and it doesn't work against Toad, and it's just like Toad's just like, come on, man. We both know that you're more dangerous than that sword, and that sword's not going to work against me anymore.
Yeah.
And then that's the last weapon you see in the movie. Like, no weapons for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, that's so great. Unlike many of the other films, there were definitely big sword fights and weapon stuff they did, which was incredible. And their weapon work is, like, these guys' weapon work is insane in these other movies. Like, I'm going to show a clip a little later from Return of the Five.
I have to just jump in here also and just say, the eyebrow game is so strong in this.
Well, especially on Ma. Ma was he had those very pronounced eyebrows.
Yeah, and I mean it's part of the style, and also the wigs. Okay, so everybody has like this
has a little thing going.
And just to go back to comics, I mean, obviously Wendy Pini was completely influenced by these. She must have seen these films because the elves in ElfQuest are just their hairstyles are complete, and just the way they dress. No, nice. Everything. They wear the vests. They have the wristlets. Like the elves are completely taken
very
from
distinctive.
This. Yeah.
And it's actually it serves a purpose too in some of the action scenes, because some of these other guys were more athletic, or they could do certain things better than their fellow stunt performers. They could stand in for each other because they're all remotely the same size. So there's some
interesting
where it's a clear cut, because they would literally swap one of the Venoms out with the other one and just have that Venom put on the other character.
Oh, that's so cool! I didn't know that.
And then they would do the flip, and then we flip back to the other guy. Like,
that's so rad! I didn't know
everybody could feed off of each other's skills. So you basically have a pool of different, like 5 different people with 5 different skill sets be able to do everybody else's skill set. So
that's what's so great. Like, so they do work so well together, especially you see a little bit of the teamwork here, like at the last fight where they're fighting together, but you see a lot of it in there, especially, again, I'm going to show this clip later, but it's like, oh my God, it's incredible. So poor Toad in his beautiful outfit, showing off his beautiful body, gets set up because, the guy who witnessed it, gets threatened and all this other stuff. But then they figure out, like, Snake is like, we need to get rid of his, and I had to look this up because I assume that's what they meant. They got to get rid of his chi, but it's Q-I, how do you pronounce it? Q-I-G, Q-I-G-O-N-G.
Oh yeah, chi. Yeah, it's pronounced chi.
Oh, that's just pronounced chi.
Yeah, it's different ways of spelling it.
Okay. I knew it meant chi, but I wasn't positive because there was another pronunciation for it. So they had to get rid of his chi, but they couldn't figure out how to do that. So that's why they got the coat of mini needles. Needles.
So they're now like, I'm a bit squeamish, so I don't like it when it's really gruesome. So that's gonna cut me off from watching a lot of movies. Okay. But
at least the blood doesn't look realistic.
Yeah,
so
this one I could tell it wasn't going to be too awful, but actually it is pretty awful. And they start torturing Toad, and he is, I'm Toad, and like, I'm super strong, except. And then I love the scene. The Snake explains there is one weak spot on his body, so if we can pierce that one weak spot, he will collapse, and that's why we must have the coat of 1,000 needles, because the needles, one of them will find his weak spot. I'm like, ouch.
Yeah.
But they don't find it.
Because
it's everywhere but there.
Yes. And he's like, it's not on my head either. Ha ha.
And he immediately gets out, starts fighting them. But then you think he's like, oh, he can escape. And then these, out of nowhere, these 2 like sort of throwing star type things land in his ears. Oh. And that's where his chi was. You find out.
That was
no.
It. Broken the veil.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess
like Chekhov in Chekhov in Wrath of Khan. The damage to the ear. Ooh.
But here's what, like, and I know it's obviously it's a movie, whatever like that, but like, we don't find out till later that Ma is Scorpion, but you're starting to slowly figure it out. He's in the room the whole time. The camera turns to him at least 2 or 3 times.
What?
So it's like, I guess he's surrounded by other officers and
It's
the judge, everybody. But it's like,
fu.
where did he get the time to throw them like that? I mean, I guess he's just really quick. Like,
hidden.
yeah. So it's like, how do you get that time? And they all talk about, like, he might later on, like, he must have been in the room, like that. It's like, but yeah,
Scorpion
so it was
is
like,
here.
yeah, it's like, oh my God. So they call him the Scorpion Spearhead. So that's what they figured. So they ended up like, and then Toad's death is that's what I vividly remember from kid is putting like suffocating him, putting the like paper over his wet face. Oh yeah. Oh my God. I remember that very distinctly as a kid.
Oh my God. Who wouldn't?
They show the whole thing.
Yes. Like layer after layer on him, and like
but first, what did they call it? The blazing stomacher? Like
yes, like that. Yeah,
it's literally translates to the red vest. Like it's a really innocuous sounding thing, but yeah, it's
they heat up this vest, like this metal vest,
iron vest,
fire, and they shove it on his back to burn him. It's like,
it's horrifying.
I find it like, I feel like that is part of the trade-off that they had to do to be like, okay, Toad, sorry, you're gonna get killed off in this movie, but like, it's gonna take everything to kill you.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, come on, guy. Okay, fine. You gotta basically kill me 3 or 4 different times. Okay, great, fine. That's funny.
Because I keep thinking, like, I forgot about that water torture scene is the thing that kills him, and like I was just like, okay, this is the part where he dies. No, this is the part where he dies. No, this is the part where he dies. It's like, okay, they did like 5 different ways to actually kill the guy.
And me not knowing that death is final in these films, I kept thinking, she's gonna come back and something's gonna happen. Where's the magic? Where's the magic? And they're like, let's hang him. So it looks like he committed suicide. And then
that's some Epstein bullshit. Yeah, I was like,
then it's like a shot of him hanging in his jail cell. It's like, no, Toad's really dead.
Furious. And meanwhile, he has been sent away by the corrupt governor on some lame that he calls him out. He goes, that's not my job. You're going to send me on like as an errand boy, message boy. And he's like, fine, I'll be back as soon as I can. So that's why he couldn't help his friend. And when he gets back, he's, of course, very upset. But even Ma's like, yeah, you didn't know him that well. He's like, yeah, but he was my friend. And then realizes the connection later. He's actually his brother.
Yeah, but he has figured out that something is rotten in the state of this.
Well, Gecko does this twice in the movie, which is kind of heartbreaking. He tells the whoever's being taken to jail, like first it's the witness and then it's his brother. He tells him, he's like, you'll be fine. Like, you're just gonna help us out. That's all. And they both wind up dying. While they're in custody.
Oh my, and that's some cold shit that the like Snake and Scorpion go and just kill off all the witnesses, and like the way they do it.
This was
with the hook thing and down then the needle to the brain. Oh my God.
Like they use these invisible methods so that it will look like they died of natural causes with blood pouring out their nose. But okay, so be it. That was gross. And again, they do not cut, no fast cuts here, slow cut of like, shove the needle up his nose. Like, you gotta.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Scorpion has still showed up off and on in Snake's quarters in his mask, and now he's even trying to get Snake to turn against Centipede. And there's a great moment where suddenly Snake is getting a conscience, where he's like, I've killed too many people. This is not what I wanted. I don't need that money. I'm rich. I'm from a rich family. Why am I doing this? And it's like almost too little, too late, But then Scorpion says, you will keep doing bad things once you start. There's no end forever and ever. You're like, oh man, brutal.
It does a great bit of setup because it makes Lizard remorseful, but not that sympathetic. It makes Snake a little remorseful, but not that sympathetic because he still agreed to kill all these people, and it's going to continue.
And he tries to make for it at the end we're getting to, but it's like.
But I think that ties into what you were talking about the brotherhood, Randall. It's like we do see that there's a lot of ties between these 5 students, and the 6 students really. And the fact that Snake has a weak moment or remorse shows that gives it a little extra depth,
Yeah, which was nice, I thought.
Yeah.
And so we get to where the student and Lizard have teamed up, and he realizes you're Lizard. He goes, hey, I'm from the same school. Don't hurt me. and they explains how he only learns this. They go, we need to come with a plan. They come with a whole freaking like, and they show it. They come with a whole plan of how to defeat the other ones.
It's
It's
so
so
cool.
awesome. I
it's
love
so
that.
Well,
They're
like
driving the
we
walls.
get like a mini fight scene between Lizard
Yeah.
and Jan, and
Mhm.
it's a great little bit. You know,
Mhm.
they don't go too far. They don't hurt each other,
Yeah.
but like it's a great little bit of exchange. And then there's this recognition that they're from the same school and that they're
Mhm.
brothers.
Yeah.
And yeah, that revelation of them like doing detective work through kung fu, and
Yes.
like how to beat these guys
Awesome.
is so cool. I love the
Yes.
editing too.
Mhm.
The editing
Oh, where they put them. Yeah.
where they splice in the training
right.
footage that you see
Mhm.
at the beginning while
Yeah.
they're doing the moves. I think that's so smart, and
Yeah.
it just looks so cool. They don't make
Yeah.
a big meal
But
out of the cut.
but they
It just
don't show
happens.
Scorpion because we still haven't figured out. Well, we still haven't been shown who he is.
Right. When he's
Um,
revealed, they will.
Yeah.
show.
Yeah. So then they figure that. So they're like, okay, let's go confront Snake and Centipede because we know they're. And well, I guess the Scorpion shows up. Whatever. So suddenly we see Ma out of his police outfit in his showing his glorious body, you know, and like in those eyebrows, and like and even like even he is like, what are you doing out of your clothes, buddy? And he's like, well, I'm here to help because well, you're not a fighter like we are, and like well, I can keep off the henchmen basically. And you know, then if you haven't figured out by now, you like, okay, he's Scorpion. We know
Yeah.
this.
No, so you
Yeah.
guys had figured out by then he was Scorpion, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
well, you'd seen it already. So, but you
Yeah.
know, like I said,
Well,
I
if
was
you
just
know
like,
the actors too. You know that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
star and he's a
right,
member of
right.
the
Well, like
clan.
I said,
Yeah.
I was like, something sounds a little fishy here. So,
Yeah.
I
So
just,
it's great.
it reminds this part of the movie reminds me of that moment in the movie Birds of Prey when
Mm,
Harley Quinn says after Renee Montoya quits the Force to
mhm.
like join the Birds of Prey, Harley Quinn has like this voiceover. It's just like, yeah, she quit the Force. No one in these movies does anything cool until they stop being a cop. And that's exactly what happens.
I mean, Kathy Ann directed that. Maybe she was a big, you know, she was
Yeah,
a big
Right,
part
yeah.
of these films too. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
it's like the moment that Gecko quits being a cop is when he actually gets stuff done.
Yeah. So like he sees that Ma's like I quit the Force, and Gecko's like me too. Throws, and then suddenly there's his glorious body. Like I'm
He
I'm
takes off his
shirtless.
hat.
Yes.
And then the
Yeah.
next scene, he
Oh, that
also
was
has his
my-
Shirtless.
shirt off.
hat is off. Oh my
I
God.
think his pants are different too. Like
Yeah. Like totally. Like
I got my fighting pants on.
I had it hidden underneath my clothes. Right. But it's so great. So they go out. So they start. The student Yang and Gecko go at Centipede and Snake, and meanwhile, and they even call him out on it. Meanwhile, Scorpion, who we still don't know is Scorpion, or well, we do, but it's not been revealed, is just standing there watching. To the point was that Snake was like, "You just gonna stand there and look at us," or something like that. And so this fight goes on. Oh wow, it's like
what a
about 10 minutes
cool.
long. What
I
a
mean,
great
like
fight.
again, just stepping up every fight scene.
Yeah.
There's like there's the three major fight scenes in this movie,
Yeah.
and each one kind of steps up the stakes.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
having a 2-on-2 fight, it's
Oh, and then
so cool.
3-on-2, 1-on-3. Oh,
and
and
then,
it's again, it's like about 9-ish minutes long. This whole fight, just from beginning to end.
But just to,
Incredible.
but it's like what we were talking about last week when we talked about Kung Fu Hustle. It's like you were like these different styles are like different superpowers. So it's not like everybody, we've already set up everybody's fighting style, and it is like seeing the Avengers go at it.
Yeah.
It's like Snake is creeping, and Centipede is super fast, and it's it's not only just awesome athletic fighting, it's like character fighting too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, like we'd seen a lot of but here just showcase the athleticism, the acrobats, the kung fu, the flexibility. It's just like insane. They start like working together and like throw like almost as at one point almost do a fastball special. It's like it's like insane.
But in classic foreshadowing, when you see the heroes planning how they're going to defeat the villains, there will be that's the setup for tension and suspense, and we know they need to go, one goes high, one goes low, they have this battle plan. So you're also like, how are they going to do that? How are they going to get in position to defeat Snake and Centipede? So it's great. It's just great storytelling, just great character, great storytelling, great fighting, just it's wonderful.
And then I have to shout out the wire work too. Like, we mentioned it a few, but like wire work, I worked on the Wire a few times. It is incredibly difficult to be a part of the Wire team, to time the movements of the performer with your pull. And I used a jerk vest with suspensions with safeties and all these other things. These guys are working with little like wire, like invisible wire.
This is 1978.
Yeah, they don't have harnesses. It's just tied around you. And you have to time these movements. You have to know your performer so well as a wire person. You have to know their movements so well, and to be able to time the choreography to these wire pulls is just phenomenal.
Yeah,
these guys really revolutionized that whole style. The whole reason that wire work even exists today in the professional way that it does is because of movies like this.
Yeah. And it's so great because they finally Ma jumps in. We feel like he's like, you're a scorpion, you can't fool me. And apparently Snake knew it for quite a while, and for some reason never called him out on it. So this is when like Scorpion's like, yeah, and throws like 4 spearheads at him, but doesn't kill Snake. And this is where Snake's conscience kicks in again. He's like, oh God, maybe I made the wrong decision, And then he sort of gives almost basically a fatal blow to Scorpion with his own spearheads.
So he has a little bit of because it's 3 against 2 bad guys against 2 good guys. So there's a little.
But then Scorpion like tells Centipede, "Be my team. We got to fight these guys." And so eventually the good guys.
I love that. That's so cool. Yeah. Centipede immediately switches the moment that you told him that you're going to pay him.
Yeah. Because Centipede's there going, should I take your side? He goes, I'll split the money. Ha! Right. Like just jumps in.
Not a moment's hesitation.
No.
And also when Scorpion is dying, he runs to Scorpion, but not to help. He was like, tell me where the treasure is. Don't die yet.
Yeah. Give me the treasure, you son of a bitch. It was great. And then oh God, I keep knocking. Sorry about that. What was funny is like when they were finally fighting Scorpion, he's the last one left, and they're doing their little plan where they're both stuck to the wall. It's like, Scorpion, just let them come to you. Don't go. Why are you going over there? They're up there. Just be like, all right, guys, whenever you're ready, I'm down here. It's like you got to go to them and die. Okay, fine. And literally just like that, fight's over. And then the movie's over. It's like
I know. I love that.
I don't need to waste time.
Don't need this. Don't say, what about the fortune? It's like, well, we're going to give that to charity. Don't worry.
Yeah, and that's all.
It's like, we're good guys. We're not taking any money out of this.
Let's go, brother.
Yep, that's it.
I'm like, that's great. I love
that epilogue is so good because it's like one sentence.
Right.
Yeah.
I love this idea too, that like he's like, I was like, we won, but we're not gonna defeat corruption around the world. Like, another governor's
because they even said we should take the governor. I was like, no, someone else will just replace him.
No.
Wow.
Just do the best you can with what you have.
Very prophetic,
it's
the devil you know beats the devil you don't, I guess.
Yeah. It's a profound ending for something that's so quick and like very economic.
Yeah.
Actually, I love that ending. It's just
there's a great it's so great. A lot of the films in that way too. There's a great documentary I found on YouTube about the whole Venom gang, the Venom Mob, they call them. It's about an hour long. It's just like, you look it up. I think it's just called 5 Deadly Venoms Biography. And it's really great. That's where I got a lot of this information from, was about them. It's like how they came together and all this other stuff, and how they, stuff. It's just their athleticism, and it shows many different, of the movies they did and the fight scenes, and what happened to most of them. But yeah, like you said, it's just like, we don't see this today. And it's like, who would you even say, Randall, is even close to one of these guys nowadays, like active?
I mean, there are a lot of folks that I'm sure that are up and coming that are trying to do the stuff like this. I know when my friends and I get together, this is what we do. Like, we're like,
up and coming Randall Trang.
When we're not working, this is what we're trying to aim for. We want to get to that level of that level of skill. There are so many.
I've seen some of your videos, and dude, you're there. So it's it's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive.
Check out Randall's Instagram for some. You might catch a clip or two.
I'm constantly training, and like that level of skill that these guys show, and guys like we talked about last time, like Jackie Chan and his opera school, and those guys, the level of skill that they have and the level of training they had is kind of. It'll never be seen again, really. Not in America, at least, and not in any major studio space. You're mostly going to get it from guys that are hungry. Like, I trained for a while with folks who trained in Indonesia,
Like, well, yeah, Tony Jaa. There you go. Like,
Yeah,
well, he's died, but yeah.
Indonesia right now is an up and coming martial
Yeah.
arts movie haven because a lot of these folks are hungry to make a name for themselves, and you get these guys that spend all day training.
Is that guy? Oh man, he's good. Yeah.
And I've met a lot of these guys. They're fantastic, super athletic and talented.
Yeah.
They spend like these guys. They spend all day at the studio, sleeping there on the floor, waking up and training. They go eat and they come back and train some more. They hit the ground. You know, they're training on concrete and hardwood. And they just like, you know, just totally immersed in stunt training and stunt fighting. And then, you know, they just make movies that are just long action sequences where they're just doing the crazy stunts. And like,
I mean, The Raid, my God.
Yeah. I mean, to be, you know, Jackie Chan has been very honest about, you know, his childhood was awful.
Right.
And, you know, I interviewed him one time and, you know, he mentioned this when he was just coming to America, and he did, you know, like he said, you know, I had to sleep on a blanket that smelled like pee-pee. And I mean, you know, I'm sure he's told it to a lot of interviews, but the pain doesn't go away. You know, I mean, that's something that's stuck with him his whole life. And, you know, like the dedication that it took to get to this level is harsh. I mean, I would compare it to like figure skating, and that you gotta, you know,
gymnastics,
gymnastics,
like it is like gymnastics, and it's just, you know, you got to give your life over to it. And I mean, I think I would, you know, in one way I'm kind of like, well, I would hope people wouldn't be quite as, you know, have to suffer this much to be that good, but you kind of do, you know, to be that amazing.
Insane. It's really like it's hard to describe because you have to know how these people live and how they come from nothing. Like with Jackie Chan and his whole crew of people, they had to do this to eat, you know, and they didn't make that much doing it. They sacrificed their bodies and their health for something that barely paid the bills, but it paid the bills. Like they got to eat and they got to survive. And now they're millionaires, but they didn't know that was going to happen at the beginning. You know, they were just hungry. Like they literally and figuratively were just hungry, and they had to do this to live.
And what's great is like you get people like Jackie Chan and many other are well known for this as well, who even after being millionaires still do their own stunts, still break their legs and break every body part while they're shooting a film.
Yeah.
They don't. They're like, I'm not gonna stunt up. I can do this.
There are parts of their, like I've trained with some of these folks, right? Maybe not as big of a name, but I've trained with a lot of these folks that have trained that way and come up that way. And I spent a lot of time with that. I've been lucky enough to train with these really high level stunt performers and fighters. And like there are parts of their bodies that'll just never heal. Like they'll just always be broken. There are parts of my body, honestly, that are broken and will never heal. Like I'm just gonna have to live with it. Like
me too. But it's my heart.
Never gonna be fully mobile ever again.
Oh no!
That sucks.
There have been injuries that I've sustained through the years of training and from hitting the ground and from doing these stunts. I mean, we do them as safe as possible, but they are still incredibly dangerous and they hurt.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a sacrifice that's hard to ask of people that have the opportunity to do other stuff. You know, like you see American actors now. We have a union, you know, SAG-AFTRA protects us, including stunt performers now. And there are safety laws and rules that protect us and keep us safe. And I love them for that. But because we have the privilege of training safely and living safely now, you're not going to see a whole lot of folks come from here anyway that are going to do stuff like the Venom Mob did, or, you know, the other folks from back then.
Well, let's talk about some of those other movies they've done. So I do want to show this quick. So the one it was called Crippled Avengers, but it's known as The Return of the Five Deadly Venoms, or also called Mortal Kombat here, but with a C, not a K. And but it's a great film because the idea is that the Venoms get together. One of them is a bad guy, so when he's young, he gets his arms chopped off, but his dad builds him these iron arms, so he learns how to. His dad is like a tiger style.
It's the Avenger who had iron arms, not the word.
So him, and then but then no, because later on the other ones show up, and they cross this guy. He's like corrupt, and one of them gets their eyes poked out, so he's blind. The other one, they give him this poison, make him mute, and they make him deaf by doing like into his ears. They chop another one's legs off, chop another one's arms off. So that's why they were called that. But they all have to learn how to fight with these complications that have happened to them, and it is incredible. So there's near the end, there's a great fight. So no, like Philip Chang's his character, they like drill into his head where they basically make him like dumb. And so his character is called the idiot in it. So he like walks around. He plays this very silly, but he can still do kung fu. So there's this incredible fight. In the way they use, I'm going to share the screen here. The way they do, just with this weapon, like so, Chang's character comes in with these rings, and he's kind of like helping the other two character fight the other character. And just watch how they do this. That's the athleticism of what they do here. I don't know if any sound or not, like there's this random. And look at this as a teamwork. At some point, I think Chang jumps through the hoop.
Yeah.
Oh, god damn it. Yeah. And it's like insane. Like they're just using that ring. Look how ridiculously cool that is. There he goes. Like holy crap. Like it is amazing. The athleticism these guys stop the share. Amazing this the athleticism they had.
Yeah, that's like incredible. Typical Peking opera circus work.
Yeah. That's exactly it. Yeah, it's circus work.
Yeah. It's like that. The only real comparison I can make like nowadays with folks like that is that I know a lot of stunt folks that are great fighters, great martial arts performers, but also have a background in gymnastics and Cirque du Soleil.
Yeah,
that level of athleticism is kind of what's on display there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it reminded me of. I'm like, oh yeah, this is like some real Cirque du Soleil stuff. But yeah, there's so many other films they did that I mentioned The Kid with the Golden Arm, Invincible Shaolin, some ones I just was watching recently. Oh, Masked Avengers, many years later they did, which was a great. Ruthless Tactics was the first one they did in Taiwan together. So many great ones. Any other ones you can like the Daredevils one?
Yeah, and like I'm just thinking back on Shaw Brothers movies, just to get away from the Venom Mob specifically, but Shaw Brothers
got it. Yeah,
studio, was like all the Gordon Liu movies.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And like I think a lot of this type of Shaw Brothers movies has crossed over. At least for me, like I remember being in high school and being really into the Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah.
Oh well, yeah.
Is just like make references and sample clips from this era of Shaw Brothers movies.
Yeah, there's a couple from this movie alone that they reference because I was a huge Wu-Tang Clan when they first came out too. Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with, and but like they have dialogue from Deadly Venoms they have in there, and they also even like created an all-female hip-hop group called the Five Deadly Venoms. Until one left, they just called them the Five Venoms,
right?
But or the Venoms or something like that. But yeah, they were heavily. Tupac has a song on his 93 album. I'm not going to say the title of that references the movie. It's called the Five Deadly Venoms. There's so
like
many.
a whole like iconic, like there's a pop culture reference quality to this era of movies, but actually watching them and admiring the work for what it is really something else.
And I think a lot of it is what Jimmy was talking about, though, that there was what was the theater called, the weekly movie
Black Belt Theater.
Yeah,
Black Belt Theater or Kung Fu Theater.
Black Belt Theater, which I don't know if they had that where I was, but probably
they had it here, yeah, because
I
know because Wu-Tang always Channel 5 in New York they talk
so
about.
I I skipped it. I was always there for the Godzilla movies and the Ray Harryhausen week, but I did not watch the Black Belt Theater. So it's like we were before we went on air. It's like a lot of this nerd knowledge or geek knowledge, cult knowledge is very much like back in the day before the internet. It was so dependent on whether you just caught that one thing or you had a friend who was like, you got to watch this, you got to see this, whether your comrades were telling you had to do it, and so but yeah, it's had a huge influence on Wu-Tang Clan, and rap and so many other things like that. So yeah, it's very seminal. It's a very seminal film.
And just in the world of stunts, you get different generations of stunt performers. Like the generation that trained me was heavily influenced by this era of martial arts films. Whereas if you dig a little further back, you'll get like even like even older generations of kung fu fans that watched different kung fu movies or were influenced by the Peking opera, even before kung fu movies were even.
Well, I in doing my research about this, I was Ip Man. Ip Man, who was
Yip Man is
Yip Man. Okay, thank you. But he was Bruce Lee's instructor, correct?
Yep.
But he has become the center of his own, cottage industry of films now. So he's become He's become like I guess Donnie Yen was in these movies about him.
Yep.
And so, but I read that the stunt. Now this is, I don't know, like we were talking about this with Stephen Chow last week, but there's always some people dragging the drama. But it said that the stunt coordinator for this movie, Five Venoms, there had controversy later in his life because he claimed to have studied with Ip Man.
Yeah.
And then they were like, "No, you didn't." But then he was like, "I have photo." So anyway, so there was some drama.
Everybody wants to claim something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
The choreographer is someone that is like he's well known in the Wing Chun community, and anybody that's in the Wing Chun community wants to claim some connection to Yip Man because he's the Wing Chun guy.
Right.
It leads a lot of credibility to you if you say that. I knew Yip Man. I trained with Yip Man.
So it's like saying, I was at Studio 54. Yeah,
right.
I was there. Yeah.
Listen, I met Gwen Stefani once during during Fashion Week at the Prada party.
I was there.
We're totally friends now.
Kim and Kanye. Yeah, I went to their party. Sure. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. So that's why, because I read this and I was like, is this a real controversy or is it? But it's like a common thing. Like you got called on your shit, basically.
Yeah. For sure. So I definitely highly recommend, obviously, seeing this film. Check out definitely some of the other Venom Mob, but also just like you said, the Shaw Brothers in general. And as Heidi was saying earlier, Netflix has an impressive array of some of these films.
If I
was going through it, I was like, holy cow.
Yeah, I'm actually going to plug another site, but on Den of Geek, there's a really great article called Best Martial Arts Movies on Netflix right now. And it's got like 20, 30 movies. And there's a ton of good ones. Yeah, there's a ton. But if you want to do a dive, I would say go to that article because it does talk about some of the movies coming out of Indonesia. Obviously the Tony Jaa era. And just some of the different schools that are coming up now in this. So there's certainly, a lot of fighting going on in the film still.
Well, I was flipping through and like watching the trailers for some of these. I'm like, I need to watch Dragon Tiger Gate. I need to watch Fury. I need to watch. Oh my God.
You just mentioned that's a huge chunk of my childhood. Dragon Tiger Gate.
Yeah.
That's because
it looks incredible. I've never seen it. Yeah. Because based on the comic. Yeah. And then like, of course, the Ip Man films and then the spin off the Master Z one. And there's actually a great one I've been meaning to watch. I don't know if it's a great one. Here it's a great one that has some really good fighting in it. It's Filipino called Buy Bust. And Anne Connor, I think it is. She's a Filipino actress. And she was more known for her dramatic roles. And they were like her first time she did like this action star. And she's the trailer looks impressive. So yeah, really, really lots of good stuff out there to check out for sure.
Well, here at Comic Beat Insider, we're continuing our journey through martial arts because, it's this martial arts month. And so we're going to do 2 more of the seminal films. We're going to do Super Cop with Jackie Chan and Michelle Yeoh. And then Jimmy's Choice, Enter the Dragon.
Gotta be the classic. Gotta
be Bruce.
You guys are really getting I think the seminal films.
Yeah.
So
there's
awesome.
Jump right in. Well, this is great.
Guys, wrap it up.
Yeah. Another great
conversation. Randall, thank you so much for joining us and
thanks for having me on. I love talking kung fu. Love talking kung fu movies.
Awesome. All right. Well, we'll definitely be continuing this because it's so interesting. So
we'll have you back for musical month. And,
yes.
You're like, but wait,
Whiplash.
There's got to be a kung fu musical out there. I know there is, and actually, I think there is a kung fu musical, isn't there?
Yeah.
I'm sure there is.
I think there is. Yeah, I think I was reading about something like that.
Well, they said some Bollywood. There's actually Bollywood martial arts movies where they fit in the fighting through the singing. True. So, for some of those. Yeah. But
awesome stuff. Thank you so much, everybody that watched us on YouTube Live. You can, of course, see this later. Tell your friends to watch it later. But you can also listen to it later on Comic News Insider because I take the audio and we put it up. Because a lot of people like, driving in their car or riding the subway, other stuff like that. So like listening to that or just running around doing house chores, whatever, things like that. So we put that up there as well. But once again, thank you, everybody. I'm Jimmy Aquino with Comic News Insider, the weekly podcast covering comics, TV, film, and pop culture. And we do a lot of reviews as well. I do a lot of TV and movie specials we're reviewing as well. But you can find me online to say hello. I'm at Jimmy Aquino, JIMMYAQUINO. Instagram, Twitter are probably the best place to find me.
And I'm Heidi MacDonald, again at thebeat, comicsbeat.com. And you can find me on all social media at Comixace, COMIXACE.
And I'm Randall Trang. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Randall Trang, RANDALL, 2 L's, TRANG. Yeah, and you guys can find me on there and we can talk about Kung Fu films.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome.
Well, I'm gonna get Randall. I gotta do a one-on-one interview with Randall to talk about not just Kung Fu, but your comics and stuff as well.
Yeah,
so
let's do it.
Yeah, Randall's the man of so many hats.
Awesome.
So like just throw them out there.
It might be a 10-hour interview because we're gonna let's talk about the first era of Kung Fu. Dive part 10, hour 17.
Well, thank you again, and so thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and until next time,
everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Comic Beat Insider.
Bye.